Alright, final practice of game week with the Eagles looking really good on the injury report. New England isn't as lucky as another starter missed practice. Plus, one analyst predicts Philly to go undefeated. And why is Jalen Hurts a lock to win MVP this season? But first, let's run it. What's up, everybody? So first off, let's start with a big happy birthday to the best owner in the league in Jeffrey Lurie. And speaking of one of the best, we've got Jason Kelce, who received the Pro Football Writers of America's Good Guy Award because, like EJ Smith said, he's generally a good guy. And no, you're not seeing things. That is Brandon Brooks there in front of his old locker. Kind of cool to see those greats together again. Now, in case you're thinking, didn't Kelce already win that award? He did, but I guess they're just getting around to passing out the hardware. So congrats to many people's favorite good guy for his dealings with the local and national media. One dude we can't say that about is Cardinals head coach Jonathan Gannon, because as you're all probably very well aware by now, Gannon deflected blame for the Super Bowl loss, putting it on the players, and even threw shade at Nick Sirianni, alluding to the fact that Gannon was somehow the savior to getting the team back on track in 2021 when the Eagles started 2-5, which of course the natural progression was for the media to ask Sirianni his thoughts on Gannon's comments. But as Jeff McClain reported, Sirianni declined to answer the question about recent comments the former DC made about him suggesting to the head coach that he hand over play calling to Shane Steichen. And although I'm glad Nick's being the bigger person, there's a part of me, like Mickey says, that I really wish he wouldn't be. You know, just to give his unfiltered thoughts.
I want to punch you in the face so bad right now.
Of course he didn't do that, but Sirianni did mention that Josh Jobe, Christian Ellis, Terrell Edmunds, and Sidney Brown are players that he expects to be key contributors on special teams this season. Meaning more than likely, like Zach Berman's thinking, Justin Evans will start at safety next to Reed Blankenship, despite the Birds being very tight-lipped about that spot. Okay, I tend to agree, but who cares about the speculation at this point? I mean, we're that close to Sunday now. The Eagles did have a final practice, though, continuing with the theme of a very clean injury report, and even cornerback Mario Goodrich, who was limited because of an illness on Thursday, was back at practice. Yet the same can't be said for the Patriots, who continue to pile up additions to the injury report. As Bill Belichick said, cornerback Jack Jones is undergoing a follow-up test on his hamstring, but has officially been ruled out for the opener. So obviously not good news for them, but the more bizarre situation in New England was that running back Ramondre Stevenson was missing from practice. However, the notion that Stevenson wouldn't be available Sunday was shot down really quickly. Okay, I was about to say, if Stevenson's not there, what on earth are the Pats gonna do? Sure, they do have Zeke Elliott, but in my opinion, the only way they can hang with Philly is through the ground, with Stevenson gaining a league-high 170 rushing yards over expected on inside runs in 2022, because they sure aren't gonna dominate in the passing game. As Sirianni was most likely reminding Jalen Carter at practice, those dudes can't contain you, since like EJ Smith of the Inquirer noted, veterans are typically reluctant to attach too much hype to rookies going into their first season, but Jalen's different, causing several teammates to be bullish about the rook and the impact he could have right away. Yeah, like Lane Johnson saying, I think Jalen Carter is going to make a lot of noise this year, which is clearly saying something from a guy who has not given up a sack in nearly 3 years. And now we get to see more than the really slim glimpse we got during the preseason. Like Fletcher Cox said, this game is very important for a couple reasons.
It's like one of those things where you find out, you're trying to get into the groove of who you are, what kind of team we are, what kind of things we're going to put on tape, and finding our identity. And, that's what you look for in those first few games.
Right, we're all ready to see that identity and see them Philly dogs, more than just practice, but getting to see them for an extended period in live action. However, don't forget about the old vet who was left out of the Philly dogs group chat. All right, we probably can't call DeAndre old at 24 years. And even though Agent Zero has a couple years under his belt, it doesn't change his expectations for the opener.
A lot of emotion. I know it's going to be a lot of emotion. Something I'm excited for. I'm blessed to be a part of. I always say it since I've been in the league. Whatever it's going to be, whatever opportunities I'm given, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability, no matter what.
I mean, football just does something to you. So not a shock based on y'all's comments in the previous video that we expect Swift to be lightning in a bottle. Plus, it doesn't hurt to have one of the best players in the game as your quarterback, who now, after Cincinnati's Joe Burrow signed a record deal and continuing the game of QB contract leapfrog, puts Jalen as the 4th highest paid player at the position behind Burrow, Los Angeles' Justin Herbert, and Baltimore Ravens' Lamar Jackson. The insanity to me in the Burrow contract was the difference in guaranteed money, somehow getting close to Cleveland Browns signal caller Deshaun Watson and his $230 million guaranteed. What is it with Ohio and their willingness to guarantee contracts?
I'm not even mad. That's amazing.
I mean, good for Burrow, and while I don't think there were too many critics for Jalen's deal he signed over the summer, surely this will help to calm the nerves for any of you doubters, but curious to know how you feel about the QB1's contract now. Obviously, Jalen's a great quarterback, yet it's his mindset that's unlike anyone else, and New England's Mac Jones knows that just about as good as anyone, saying, "I think there's a lot of learning lessons. I definitely took a lot of what Jalen persevered through. Love to see him bounce back and do a great job. In college, he went through a lot, transferred, and played well everywhere he's been. It's just who he is, it's Jalen Hurts." But Hurts isn't the only guy on the Eagles that Jones is familiar with, since I'm sure most of us recall Devontae Smith's Heisman days at Alabama definitely made life a lot easier for Jones and the Crimson Tide, which isn't going to make life fun for Belichick and the Patriots defense. Yet despite a relative mismatch, Jalen has cautioned that there could be some rust, echoing the same sentiment that Fletch shared when speaking with the media. Except Hurts is apparently coming into this season on another level. As wide receiver A.J. Brown said, "I think the game is slowing down for him. He's recognizing a lot of things a lot faster. He's playing at a different pace, playing with a different swagger, and I know it's just been practice, but you can definitely see him, and we feed off his energy. I tell him all the time I'm proud of him. He wants to win football games, and that's the only thing that matters. He hasn't changed from that at all." Gosh, well, in that case, the Eagles aren't going to lose a game. I mean, that's at least what Andrew Brandt believes, writing for his bold prediction of the season that the Eagles will not lose. Not a regular season game, not a playoff game, not the Super Bowl. This is a team that barely lost last year, and it's even more stacked this year. The Eagles have the top offensive line in the NFL and one of the top 2 or 3 defensive lines. They have an established star in A.J. Brown and a rising star in Devontae Smith at wide receiver. They have the MVP runner-up at quarterback, who is only getting better. And there's no one on the Eagles' schedule, or any schedule for that matter, that matches their talent, and there will be no slippery fields to thwart their pass rush in this year's Super Bowl. Yes, undefeated, and I don't think that's a bold prediction. All right, look, I'm all for that, sure, except for the whole Devontae Smith being a rising star part, because he's already a star, but come on, it's really tough to win in this league. And as we know, mistakes happen and cost you games. Like, for example, the constant drops from the Chiefs receivers against the Lions that no doubt cost Kansas City a win. Because nothing's a guarantee in this league, which is why I'm saying 11 to 12 wins for us, but let me know what your boldest prediction is for the player or coach or even for the team this year. It feels like a Jalen Hurts to win MVP at plus 1100 odds wouldn't be the worst bet. Speaking of picks, I'm going to start a trend of giving out picks for NFL games every Friday. Now, buyer beware, because I'm not claiming to be an expert, so perhaps it's best to fade all of my picks, but here you go. For the first selection, I'll lay the 4.5 points for the Jags in Indy. Next up, give me the Las Vegas Raiders plus 3.5 in Denver, and I'm going to go ahead and take the under 45 in the Eagles game at Foxborough. All right, now go ahead and let me know why those are all terrible picks. Looking forward to seeing the Birds in action, hopefully as we spoil Tom Brady Day. Also worth mentioning that GM Howie Roseman made a couple moves to the practice squad, bringing back linebacker Kyron Johnson and cornerback Tiawan Mullen, while releasing wide receiver Joseph Ngata and tight end Brady Russell, which is definitely worth keeping an eye on, especially since we've got 4 tight ends on the active roster, which feels like one could get demoted to the practice squad pretty soon. My favorite part of this move is bringing back Johnson, because I'm sure we're going to end up needing some depth, plus the speed and athleticism he offers is definitely worth some more development. Yet I think it's safe to say this won't be the last move we see from Howie. And a reminder that we'll be live streaming the game if you want to swing by on Sunday for play-by-play reactions and giveaways. No more waiting now. This has been the Philly Special.